The first time Isabella Reed saw Dante Moretti, he was standing beneath a crystal chandelier with blood on his white shirt. Not his blood. She knew that before anyone told her. Men like Dante Moretti did not bleed where people could see. They made other people bleed in rooms no one talked about. Isabella had been working at the Moretti estate for exactly 11 days when she learned that lesson. 11 days of polished silver, endless marble hallways, expensive paintings, and rules that nobody had bothered to write down because everyone in the house already knew them. Never enter the West Wing after midnight. Never ask why armed men arrive through the kitchen instead of the front door. Never touch the locked cabinet in Mr. Moretti's study. And above all, never look directly at Dante Moretti when he was angry. Isabella broke the last rule on her 11th night. She stood at the entrance to the dining room, holding a tray of untouched coffee, while 3 men in black suits hurried past her. One of them had a bruised face. Another was gripping his wrist as if something had been broken. Dante remained beneath the chandelier, tall, motionless, terrifyingly calm. His dark hair was pushed back from his forehead. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows, exposing powerful forearms and a black watch that probably cost more than Isabella made in a year. A thin line of red stained the cuff of his shirt. Everyone else lowered their eyes. Isabella didn't. Dante noticed. Of course he noticed. His gaze moved across the room and stopped on her. For 3 long seconds, nobody breathed. Then Isabella lifted the coffee tray slightly. "Your espresso is getting cold, Mr. Moretti." The housekeeper beside her nearly dropped a plate. Dante stared at Isabella. She stared back. And then, to everyone's shock, one corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Something more dangerous. "Bring it to my study." That was how it began. Not with love. Not with tenderness. With a cup of cold espresso and a woman who refused to be afraid of him. Welcome back to Black Rose Stories, where love grows in the darkest places and even the hardest hearts can discover something worth protecting. Isabella Reed had not come to the Moretti estate looking for adventure. She had come because she needed money. At 28, Isabella had learned that survival rarely looked glamorous. Sometimes survival meant waking before sunrise, tying her curls into a neat bun, putting on a black and white uniform, and cleaning rooms larger than the apartment she had grown up in. She was a black woman who had spent enough of her life being underestimated to recognize the look immediately. Some guests saw the uniform before they saw her. Some spoke around her as if she were furniture. Some snapped their fingers. Isabella tolerated the job. She did not tolerate disrespect. That distinction mattered. Her mother had taught her that. You can work for somebody without belonging to them, her mother used to say. Never confuse the two. Isabella carried those words everywhere, especially into Dante Moretti's study. She knocked once. "Come in." Dante sat behind a massive walnut desk. The bloodstained shirt was gone, replaced by a charcoal one. His jacket hung over a chair. The room smelled faintly of cedar and smoke. Isabella placed the espresso beside him. "Anything else?" Dante didn't touch the cup. "Why weren't you afraid?" She paused. "Of what? Me?" Isabella almost laughed. Would being afraid improve the coffee? His eyes narrowed. Most people probably apologized when he looked at them that way. Isabella waited. "No," he finally said. "Then I don't see the point." She turned toward the door. "Isabella." She stopped. It was the first time he had used her name. She looked over her shoulder. Dante leaned back in his chair. "Do you always speak to your employer like this?" "Only when my employer asks strange questions." This time, she saw it clearly. Dante Moretti smiled. It disappeared almost immediately. "You may go. Good night, Mr. Moretti." After she left, Dante stared at the closed door for a long time. He knew almost everything that happened inside his house. He knew which guard had gambling debts, which cook secretly sent leftover food to a homeless shelter, which politician visited through the private entrance, which member of his organization was beginning to think betrayal might be profitable. But he knew almost nothing about Isabella Reed. That bothered him. By breakfast the next morning, a file was waiting on his desk. Dante opened it. Isabella Reed, 28 years old, born in Baltimore. No criminal record. Former hospitality management student. She had left college during her final year. Mother deceased. Father absent. One younger brother, Marcus Reed, 22. Employment history ordinary. Debt less ordinary. Medical bills from her mother's illness had swallowed the family's savings. Isabella had worked 2 jobs for nearly 3 years. Her brother was finishing university. Dante closed the file. He disliked the uncomfortable sensation that followed. Respect. He had expected secrets. Instead, he found sacrifice. Days passed, then weeks, and Isabella began noticing something strange. Dante Moretti was everywhere. At breakfast, reading financial reports while drinking espresso. In the library, speaking Italian on the phone. Crossing the courtyard surrounded by men who looked like they could dismantle a car with their bare hands. Returning after midnight with exhaustion hidden behind an expression of stone. The frightening mafia boss the newspapers occasionally whispered about was, inside his own home, almost painfully disciplined. He never shouted at the staff, never left a mess deliberately, never touched a woman without invitation. And when an elderly gardener named Mr. Alvarez became sick, Dante quietly paid for his surgery without allowing anyone to mention it. That did not make him a good man. Isabella understood that. A wolf could protect its pack and still be a wolf. But it made him more complicated than she wanted him to be. One rainy Thursday, Isabella found him in the kitchen at 2 in the morning. She had come downstairs for tea. Dante was standing in front of the refrigerator, staring inside it. Isabella stopped. He looked at her. She looked at him. "What are you doing?" Dante glanced into the refrigerator. "Looking for food." "In the refrigerator?" "That is traditionally where food is kept." Isabella folded her arms. "You're very funny for a crime lord." Silence. Her eyes widened slightly. She had said it. Dante slowly closed the refrigerator door. "Crime lord." "I said employer." "No, you didn't." "Then perhaps you're tired." He stepped closer. Isabella refused to move. Dante was more than 6 feet tall. Up close, he had the kind of presence that made rooms feel smaller. "Are you accusing me of something, Miss Reed?" "No." "Good. I'm observing something." His eyebrow lifted. "Which is?" "You're terrible at feeding yourself." For a second, he looked genuinely confused. Then Isabella walked past him. "What do you want?" "I can manage." "You've been staring at cheese for 5 minutes." "I was considering my options." "You have a private chef. He's sleeping. And apparently you become helpless after midnight." Dante leaned against the counter. Nobody spoke to him like this. Nobody. Yet instead of anger, he felt something dangerously close to amusement. Isabella opened cabinets and found pasta, garlic, olive oil, chili flakes, and parmesan. "Sit." Dante stared at her. "Excuse me." "Sit down." Men had begged for mercy in front of Dante Moretti. Government officials had changed decisions after a single telephone call from him. And somehow, at 2 in the morning, he found himself sitting at his own kitchen island because his maid had told him to. 20 minutes later, Isabella placed a bowl in front of him. Spaghetti aglio e olio. Dante tasted it. His expression changed. "Good." He took another bite. "Acceptable." Isabella rolled her eyes. "Then cook for yourself next time." She reached for the bowl. His hand closed around it. "No." She laughed. The sound surprised him. It was warm and effortless. Dante realized he could not remember the last time someone had laughed around him without checking first whether he approved. "Sit," he said. "Now you're giving orders?" "It is my house." "There's the mafia boss again." "Employer." "Of course." She made tea while he ate. And for 20 quiet minutes, they were simply 2 people in a kitchen while rain struck the windows. Dante told her nothing important. Isabella asked nothing dangerous. Still, something shifted. After that night, their encounters became more frequent. Perhaps accidentally. Perhaps not. Dante started coming home around the time Isabella finished checking the downstairs rooms. Isabella began finding reasons to make 1 extra cup of coffee. Sometimes they spoke for 5 minutes. Sometimes 30. He learned that she loved old jazz records. She learned that he hated opera despite owning season tickets. He learned that she wanted to finish her degree. She learned that he had lost his father at 17. "What happened to him?" she asked one evening. Dante's expression hardened. He trusted the wrong man. Isabella understood that the conversation was over. She didn't push. That, more than anything, made Dante trust her. Everyone wanted something from him. Information, money, protection, power. Isabella seemed to want only honesty. And because she never demanded it, he slowly began giving it to her. One night, she found him alone on the terrace. The city lights shimmered far beyond the estate. Dante held a glass of whiskey. "You don't sleep much," Isabella said. "Neither do you." "I'm working." "So am I." She leaned against the railing several feet away. "Does your work always require armed men?" Dante looked at her. Does your work always require questions? Only interesting ones. He almost smiled. A cool wind moved through the garden. Isabella rubbed her arms. Without speaking, Dante removed his jacket and held it toward her. She looked at it, then at him. Is this the part where I'm supposed to be impressed? It's the part where you're supposed to be cold. I am. Then take the jacket. She did. It was warm from his body. That should not have mattered. It did. Thank you. Dante looked back toward the city. You're welcome. For a man who commanded rooms simply by entering them, tenderness looked almost unnatural on him. But Isabella was beginning to discover it existed, hidden beneath layers of discipline, violence, obligation, and grief, that frightened her more than his reputation ever had. Because monsters were easy to avoid, complicated men were not. 3 months after Isabella arrived at the estate, Dante hosted a charity gala. Hundreds of guests filled the ballroom. Politicians, business executives, celebrities, men whose legitimate companies concealed illegitimate alliances, women covered in diamonds. Isabella worked with the household staff, carrying champagne through the crowd. She hated events like this. People looked through her. One guest didn't. His name was Richard Calloway, the son of a wealthy real estate developer. He had been drinking for hours. Hey, he said, blocking Isabella's path. Champagne. She offered the tray. He took a glass, but didn't move. You're new. I work here, sir. I can see that. His eyes moved slowly over her body. Isabella's jaw tightened. Excuse me. She tried to pass. Richard stepped sideways. What's your name? Isabella. Beautiful. Thank you. I need to work. He caught her wrist. Isabella's expression changed instantly. Let go. Richard grinned. Relax. I said let go. A voice came from behind him. So did she. Richard froze. Dante stood several feet away. He wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. The room around them seemed to sense the change. Conversations softened. Richard released Isabella. Dante, come on. We were just. No. One word. Richard swallowed. I didn't mean anything. Dante approached. Apologize. Richard laughed nervously. Seriously? Dante's eyes became cold. Apologize to her. Richard looked at Isabella. I'm sorry. She said nothing. Dante stepped closer to Richard. You are leaving. My father can leave with you. Dante, you're throwing us out because of a maid? That was the wrong sentence. Everyone nearby knew it. Dante's expression did not change, but something lethal entered his eyes. Because of a woman who told you not to touch her. Richard's face drained of color. 2 guards appeared. Dante didn't need to give them instructions. They escorted Richard away. The music slowly resumed. Isabella looked at Dante. I could have handled him. I know. Then why interfere? Because you shouldn't have to handle that in my home. Something tightened in her chest. Dante turned to leave. Dante. He stopped. She had never called him by his first name before. He looked back. Thank you. His gaze softened. Then he disappeared into the crowd. That night changed the way Isabella saw him. Unfortunately, it also changed the way Dante's enemies saw her. A photograph from the gala appeared in a newspaper 2 days later. Dante Moretti was in the foreground. Isabella stood behind him. Nothing about the photograph looked intimate. But one man noticed the direction of Dante's eyes. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at Isabella. That man was Viktor Sorin. And Viktor had spent 7 years searching for something Dante Moretti cared enough about to lose. 2 weeks later, Isabella's brother disappeared. Marcus normally called every Sunday. That Sunday, he didn't. Isabella tried again. No answer. Monday morning, she called his university. He had missed class. By noon, panic had replaced concern. She was standing in the servants' corridor calling hospitals when Dante found her. Isabella. She turned away quickly. Not now. He heard the break in her voice. Dante approached. What happened? Nothing. Look at me. She did. Her eyes were wet. Dante felt something inside him turn cold. Tell me. My brother. What about him? I can't find him. Dante's entire demeanor changed. When did you last speak? Saturday. Has he disappeared before? No. Does he owe anyone money? No. Enemies. He's a college student, Dante. Dante pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Finding him. I can call the police. You can. His eyes met hers. But call them after I make this call. Within 15 minutes, the Moretti estate transformed. Cars left through 3 gates. Phones rang in rooms Isabella had never entered. Security footage was requested. License plates were traced. People across the city started asking questions. Isabella watched it happen with growing horror. This was Dante's world. Not the quiet kitchen. Not the terrace. This. Power moving invisibly through a city. 3 hours later, Dante entered the study where Isabella waited. He closed the door. She stood immediately. You found him. Dante's silence answered first. He's alive, he said. Her knees nearly gave way. Where? Viktor Sorin has him. Who is that? My enemy. Isabella stared at him. Why would your enemy take my brother? Dante didn't answer. She understood anyway. Her face changed. No. Isabella. No. She stepped backward. This is because of you. Yes. The word hit harder because he didn't hide from it. She pressed a hand over her mouth. Dante had faced guns without flinching, but seeing Isabella look at him with fear and betrayal nearly broke something in him. I will bring Marcus home. How? That's not something you need to know. He's my brother, and that is why you cannot be involved. You don't get to decide that. Tonight I do. She stared at him. Don't speak to me like I'm one of your soldiers. I'm trying to keep you alive, and I'm trying to get my brother back. Dante's voice rose for the first time. Viktor took him because of me. Silence. Dante lowered his voice. Because he thinks you matter to me. Isabella's breathing stopped. Neither moved. Finally she whispered, do I? Dante looked at her. He could lie to politicians, enemies, police, his own men, but not to her. More than you should. The room seemed to disappear around them. Isabella had imagined hearing something like that from him. Not like this. Not while her brother's life hung between them. She looked away. Bring Marcus home. I will. And then. Dante's jaw tightened. Then you leave this house. Her eyes snapped back to his. What? You and Marcus will be given new identities if necessary. Money. Somewhere safe. You're firing me? I'm protecting you. By deciding my life for me. By removing you from mine. Pain appeared in her expression. Dante hated himself for noticing. But he continued. Anyone close to me becomes a target. Then why did you let me get close? His answer was almost inaudible. I wasn't strong enough to stop it. Dante left before she could see what those words cost him. At midnight, he went to war. Isabella knew nothing about the details. Only that 22 men left the estate. 14 returned before dawn. Dante was not among them. Marcus was. The moment the car stopped, Isabella ran outside barefoot. Her brother stumbled from the back seat. She threw her arms around him. Marcus, I'm okay. She held his face. Are you hurt? Just bruised. Where's Dante? Marcus went silent. Marcus, where is he? He got me out. Where is he? He was shot. The world stopped. Isabella turned toward the guards. Where is he? No one answered. She grabbed the nearest man's jacket. Tell me. A black SUV appeared at the gate. It moved too quickly. The doors opened before the vehicle fully stopped. 2 men carried Dante out. His shirt was soaked in blood. Isabella forgot how to breathe. Dante. His eyes were closed. Dante. Someone tried to hold her back. She fought them. Move. The Moretti family physician was already waiting. Dante disappeared into a private medical room inside the estate. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Isabella sat outside with blood on her hands that wasn't hers. Again. Except this time she was terrified. Marcus sat beside her. He came himself, he said quietly. Isabella looked at him. What? To get me. Marcus stared at the floor. The other guys wanted him to stay back. He wouldn't. Isabella closed her eyes. Viktor told him to choose. Choose what? His territory or me? She looked at Marcus. What did Dante say? Marcus swallowed. He said, take everything. Isabella's heart cracked. At sunrise, the doctor finally emerged. The bullet missed his heart. Isabella stood. Can I see him? He needs rest. Can I see him? The doctor studied her, then nodded. Dante looked strangely human in bed. No tailored suit. No guards. No cold expression. Just a pale man connected to monitors. Isabella sat beside him. For hours, she said nothing. Then Dante opened his eyes. His gaze moved slowly until it found her. Marcus. Safe. His eyes closed in relief. You should be resting. So should you. She almost laughed. Instead, tears filled her eyes. You're an idiot. Dante looked at her. You got shot. I noticed. Don't joke. I'm not. She wiped her face angrily. You could have died. But I didn't. You gave up everything. Not everything. What does that mean? His hand moved weakly across the blanket. Isabella hesitated before taking it. Dante's fingers closed around hers. I got your brother back. Her tears fell. You barely know him. I know you. There it was. Simple. Devastating. Isabella lowered her head. Dante, what are we doing? He was quiet for a long time. Something dangerous. That's not funny. I wasn't trying to be. She looked at him. Do you love me? For the first time since she had known him, Dante Moretti looked afraid. Not of death. Not of enemies. Of the truth. Yes. Isabella's breath caught. I don't know when it happened, he continued. Maybe in the kitchen. Maybe before that. I only know that somewhere between you insulting my ability to make dinner and you stealing my jackets, this house stopped feeling the same when you weren't in it. I borrowed one jacket. You never returned it. It looked better on me. It did. She laughed through her tears. Dante watched her as though the sound itself could heal him. Then his expression became serious. But you cannot stay. Her smile vanished. We're doing this again. Viktor is alive. So he'll try again. Then stop him. Dante almost smiled. You make that sound simple. I'm not asking for simple. Isabella. No. She released his hand and stood. You keep telling me what I can and can't do because you're afraid. His eyes hardened. I am not afraid. You're terrified. Of Viktor. Of loving someone. That silenced him. Isabella stepped closer. You can command 100 armed men, but the second you care about somebody, you decide the solution is to push them away. People I love die. So you think being alone will protect everyone? It protects you. No. It protects you from having something to lose. Dante stared at her. Nobody had ever spoken to him with such brutal accuracy. Isabella's voice softened. I won't pretend your world doesn't scare me. It does. And I won't romanticize what you do. I know there are things about your life I may never accept. Dante looked away. But whether I stay or leave is my decision. He looked back at her. You would choose this? I'm choosing myself. She placed a hand against his chest, carefully avoiding his wound. And right now, I'm choosing to stay long enough to figure out whether there's a man beneath all this darkness worth loving. Dante covered her hand with his. And if there isn't? I leave. You make it sound easy. It won't be. She held his gaze. But love isn't supposed to erase who I am. Something in Dante's expression softened. No, he said. It isn't. Their first kiss was not dramatic. There was no thunder, no music, no audience. Dante simply lifted his hand to Isabella's cheek. He waited. That mattered. She closed the distance. His lips touched hers gently, almost cautiously, as if the most feared man in the city was afraid she might disappear. For several seconds, the world outside that room ceased to exist. Then Isabella pulled away. You need to recover. Dante's eyes remained closed. That was cruel. She smiled. You'll survive. I've survived worse. Good. She squeezed his hand. Because we're not finished. But Viktor Sorin wasn't finished either. Dante recovered slowly. During the next 6 weeks, Isabella saw another side of his life. He had lost significant territory in exchange for Marcus. Several allies began questioning his judgment. Rumors spread that Dante Moretti had become weak. Dante accepted the consequences without complaint. But Isabella saw the pressure accumulating. One evening, she entered his study and found him staring at financial reports. You haven't eaten. I'm busy. That's not an answer. It is technically an answer. She placed a plate beside him. He looked at it, then at her. You no longer work for me. Correct. After Marcus returned, Isabella had resigned. Not because Dante asked. Because she wanted whatever existed between them to begin on equal ground. She rented a small apartment with Marcus and returned to university to finish her hospitality degree. Dante had offered to pay. She refused. He argued. She refused more aggressively. They compromised. He gave her access to one of his unused office spaces so she could study without paying rent. She brought him dinner when he forgot to eat. Their relationship grew in the strange space between two worlds. Dante visited ordinary restaurants with her. The first time they waited 40 minutes for a table, he looked personally offended. You could buy this restaurant, Isabella whispered. I could. Don't. The service is inefficient. Normal people wait. I dislike it. Welcome to civilization. He looked at her. She laughed. He stayed. Isabella attended formal dinners with him too. People stared. Some because Dante Moretti had never publicly brought a woman beside him. Others because Isabella did not fit the image they expected. She noticed. Of course she noticed. At one dinner, an older woman smiled thinly at Isabella. And how did you two meet? Isabella took a sip of wine. I worked in Dante's house. As a maid. The woman's eyebrows rose. How unusual. Dante placed his fork down. Isabella touched his knee beneath the table. She could handle herself. She smiled at the woman. Very. I spent months cleaning up after rich people. It prepared me perfectly for these dinners. The man beside Dante coughed into his napkin to hide a laugh. Dante's mouth twitched. The woman turned red. Later, in the car, Dante looked at Isabella. You enjoyed that. Immensely. I was going to defend you. I know. You stopped me. I don't need you to fight every battle. His expression became thoughtful. Isabella took his hand. But I like knowing you would. Dante lifted her fingers to his lips. That was how they learned each other. Not through grand declarations. Through boundaries. Through arguments. Through choices. Dante learned that protecting Isabella did not mean controlling her. Isabella learned that independence did not require rejecting every act of care. He never asked her to become smaller so she could fit into his world. She never pretended his darkness didn't exist. And slowly, Dante began asking himself a question he had avoided his entire adult life. Could he leave? Not Isabella. The empire. His father had built the Moretti organization from blood and fear. Dante had inherited it at 23. For 11 years, he had believed there was no exit. Then Isabella showed him another possibility. A life where his phone did not ring at 3 in the morning because somebody had been killed. A home without armed guards in every corridor. Children who would know him as their father rather than as a name people feared. He wanted it. And wanting it terrified him. Viktor knew. He began attacking Moretti businesses. Not Isabella. Not Marcus. Dante had made security around them nearly impenetrable. Instead, Viktor attacked Dante's reputation. Shipments disappeared. Associates changed sides. Police received anonymous information. Dante's empire began cracking. His second-in-command, Luca Romano, confronted him. You need to end this. Dante looked up from his desk. I intend to. No. You intend to negotiate. And Viktor sees mercy as weakness. Dante stood. Do you? Luca hesitated. He had been Dante's closest friend since childhood. No. Then say what you mean. Luca exhaled. The men are scared. They should be. Of Viktor. They should be more afraid of becoming him. Luca stared at Dante. 6 months earlier, those words would never have left his mouth. You've changed. Dante looked toward the window. Yes. Because of Isabella? Dante considered it. No. Luca frowned. She reminded me I could. That night, Dante made a decision. He began dismantling the criminal side of the Moretti empire. Quietly. Legitimate businesses were separated from illegal operations. Employees who wanted out received money and protection. Evidence against violent associates was anonymously delivered to authorities. Dante sold assets, closed routes, ended alliances. It was not redemption. He knew better than to call it that. The past did not disappear because a man decided he wanted a future. But change had to begin somewhere. And Dante began. Viktor responded with violence. The final confrontation came on a cold November evening. Isabella had just left university when a black car blocked the road. Her security driver reached for his weapon. Too late. Another vehicle appeared behind them. Men surrounded the car. Isabella's heart hammered. The rear door opened. Viktor Soren stood outside. Miss Reed. She stared at him. He smiled. I've been waiting a long time to meet you. Isabella didn't move. Get out. No. Viktor laughed. You really are exactly as described. He leaned closer. Get out, or your driver dies. Isabella looked at the man beside her. He gave the smallest shake of his head. Don't. Viktor raised a gun. Isabella opened the door. They took her to an abandoned hotel outside the city. But Viktor made one mistake. He assumed Isabella was merely Dante Moretti's weakness. He didn't understand that she had spent her entire life surviving without Dante. She observed everything. 3 floors. At least 9 men. 2 entrances. 1 guard outside her room. Her phone was gone, but the smartwatch beneath her sleeve remained. The signal was weak. She managed to send 1 message. Not to Dante. To Marcus. Old Crown Hotel. Call Dante. Then she waited. Viktor entered 20 minutes later. Do you know why you're here? Because you're obsessed with a man who doesn't respect you. His smile vanished. Interesting. Isabella stored that reaction away. You think you're brave. I think you're predictable. He stepped closer. Dante destroyed everything my family built, and kidnapping me rebuilds it. It makes him suffer. No, it makes you look desperate. Viktor slapped the table beside her. Isabella flinched but didn't look away. You know nothing about me. I know enough. You were a maid. And he laughed. And now you think you're some queen because Dante Moretti sleeps with you? Isabella's expression remained calm. No, I know who I am whether Dante is standing beside me or not. That answer irritated him more than fear would have. Good. Angry men made mistakes. She needed him making mistakes. What does he see in you? Viktor asked it almost genuinely. Isabella smiled. Maybe he likes women who don't kidnap college students. Viktor struck her. Pain exploded across her cheek. She tasted blood. For 1 second, fear threatened to overwhelm her. Then she remembered her mother. You can work for somebody without belonging to them. And Isabella realized the lesson was larger than work. Fear could exist inside her. It did not own her. Viktor grabbed her chin. Still brave. Isabella looked directly into his eyes. Still pathetic? He raised his hand again. Gunfire erupted downstairs. Viktor froze. Isabella smiled despite the blood on her lip. Sounds like my boyfriend. Chaos exploded through the building. Viktor grabbed Isabella and dragged her toward the door, pressing a gun against her side. Men shouted downstairs. Then silence. Footsteps approached. Slow. Controlled. Viktor pulled Isabella into the hallway. Dante appeared at the opposite end. His black coat was open. A pistol hung at his side. His face was terrifyingly calm. But when he saw the bruise on Isabella's cheek, something changed in his eyes. Viktor noticed. There he is. Dante said nothing. Drop the gun. Dante did. It hit the floor. Isabella's heart pounded. Viktor smiled. All that power. And here you are again. Dante looked only at Isabella. Are you hurt? I'm okay. Viktor pushed the gun harder against her. Stop talking to her. Dante's eyes moved to him. What do you want? Everything. You can have it. Viktor laughed. You said that before. I meant it before. Dante spread his hands. The routes are gone. The network is being dismantled. The money you want doesn't exist in the form you think it does. Viktor stared at him. You're lying. No. Nobody walks away from this life. I am. For her. Dante looked at Isabella. No. Her heart sank for half a second. Then he continued. For myself. His eyes remained on hers. She taught me that was possible. Isabella understood. Dante wasn't changing to earn her love. He was changing because he had finally decided what kind of man he wanted to become. That mattered more. Viktor's hand tightened. You think you get a happy ending? No. Dante's voice was quiet. I think I get consequences. He took one step forward. But she doesn't belong to those consequences. Viktor pointed the gun at him. Stop. Dante stopped. Tell your men to leave. They already have. Viktor hesitated. That was the mistake. Isabella drove her heel down onto his foot and threw her body sideways. The gun fired. Dante moved. Another shot cracked through the corridor. Viktor collapsed. Isabella hit the floor. For one horrifying second, nobody moved. Then Dante was beside her. Isabella. I'm okay. He checked her arms, her face, her body. I'm okay. Dante pulled her against him. His hands shook. Isabella had never felt them shake before. I'm okay, she whispered again. Dante buried his face against her hair. I know. I thought I lost you. You didn't. His arms tightened. Police sirens sounded outside. Isabella pulled back. Dante. He looked at her. It's over. Dante glanced toward Viktor. No. Then back at her. But it can be. Dante Moretti spent the next year learning how difficult change really was. There was no magical escape. No clean slate. Investigations followed. Lawyers filled his calendar. Several former associates testified against one another. Dante cooperated with authorities through negotiated agreements that cost him money, influence, and nearly every piece of the empire his father had built. Some legitimate Moretti companies survived. Most were placed under independent management. The mansion was sold. That shocked Isabella more than anything. You sold the house. Dante looked up from his coffee. They were sitting in her apartment. His expensive coat was hanging over a chair that cost $30. Yes. The whole estate. Generally, that's how selling a house works. She narrowed her eyes. Don't get sarcastic. I learned it from you. Where are you going to live? Dante looked around her tiny kitchen. Isabella stared at him. No, I haven't asked anything. Your face is asking. I wasn't aware my face could speak. It has an accent. He laughed. Actually laughed. A year ago, that sound had been almost impossible. Now she heard it often. Dante stood and wrapped his arms around her waist. Live with me. She blinked. Where? Anywhere. Dante. I mean it. He touched his forehead to hers. New York. Chicago. London. A small town where nobody knows us. I don't care. You'd last 3 days in a small town. 4. 2. You're negotiating badly. She smiled, then became serious. What do you want? For years, nobody had asked Dante that question without meaning money or power. He thought carefully. A home. Isabella's expression softened. With you. He continued. A kitchen where you criticize everything I do. Naturally. A bedroom without a gun in the nightstand. Her smile disappeared. Dante touched her cheek. Sunday mornings. What happens Sunday mornings? I don't know. That's suspiciously vague. I've never had them. She understood. He had never had ordinary life. Dante swallowed. I'd like to find out. Isabella kissed him. Okay. His eyes widened slightly. Okay. Don't make me reconsider. He kissed her again. 6 months later, Isabella graduated. Dante sat in the audience beside Marcus. He wore a dark suit with no bodyguards around him. When Isabella's name was called, Marcus shouted so loudly that half the auditorium turned. Dante stood and applauded. Isabella looked toward them. For one moment, she saw everything that had brought her there. Her mother's hospital room, the bills, the uniforms, the endless shifts, the nights she nearly quit. She wished her mother could see her. Then she remembered what her mother had always told her. Never confuse working for someone with belonging to them. Isabella smiled. She belonged to herself. And because she belonged to herself, she was free to choose whom she loved. After graduation, Isabella opened a boutique hotel consulting company. Dante invested in it. At first, she refused. Naturally, they argued for 3 days. Eventually, she agreed on one condition. You get exactly the same contract as any other investor. Dante stared at the paperwork. You're charging me fees? Yes. I'm your boyfriend. Congratulations. He looked offended. She kissed his cheek. Sign. He signed. Her company grew. Not because she was Dante Moretti's girlfriend. Because Isabella was good. She understood hospitality from the ground up. She knew what wealthy owners often forgot. The people cleaning rooms understood a hotel differently from the people sleeping in them. She built her business around that idea. Housekeepers received better training, better equipment, clear promotion paths. Managers spent 1 day every quarter working alongside cleaning teams. Within 2 years, Isabella's company had contracts across several cities. One evening, she returned home exhausted. Dante was in the kitchen. Smoke filled the room. Isabella stopped. What happened? Dante turned around. Nothing. The smoke detector screamed. She looked at the pan. Is that dinner? It was. She started laughing. This isn't funny. You once ran a criminal empire. I failed to see the relevance. And pasta defeated you. I was distracted. By what? Dante turned off the stove. Then faced her. Suddenly serious. By this. He reached into his pocket. Isabella stopped laughing. Dante. He lowered himself onto one knee. She covered her mouth. There was no restaurant. No orchestra. No mansion. Just their kitchen. A burned dinner. A screaming smoke detector. And Dante Moretti kneeling in front of her. It was perfect. He held a small black box. Inside was an elegant ring. Not enormous. Not designed to impress strangers. Exactly her style. Isabella Reed. Her eyes filled with tears. I spent most of my life believing love was a liability. He took a breath. I thought power meant having nothing anyone could take from me. Then you walked into my house, looked directly at me when everyone else looked away, and told me my coffee was cold. She laughed through her tears. You were terrifying. You hid it well. I wasn't scared. You were a little scared. Continue before I say no. Dante smiled. Then his expression softened. You never saved me, Isabella. She became still. You show me a door. I had to decide whether to walk through it. A tear slipped down her cheek. You taught me that becoming better isn't something a person does once. It's a choice you make every day. His voice grew quieter. And I will spend every day choosing it if you'll let me spend those days beside you. He held up the ring. Marry me. Isabella stared at the man before her. Once, people had trembled when Dante Moretti entered a room. Once, his name opened doors and ended conversations. Once, he had believed fear was the same thing as respect and isolation was the same thing as strength. Now he was kneeling in a smoky kitchen, asking one woman to trust him with her future. Isabella smiled. Yes. For perhaps the first time in his life, Dante Moretti was completely speechless. She laughed. You're supposed to put the ring on me. Right. His hands actually trembled. She held out her hand. He slid the ring onto her finger. Then Isabella pulled him to his feet and kissed him. The smoke detector continued screaming. Neither cared. Their wedding took place the following spring. It was small. Marcus stood beside Dante. Isabella carried white roses mixed with black ones. When Dante saw her walking toward him, he forgot everyone else existed. Isabella wore no veil. Her natural curls framed her face. She looked powerful, radiant, entirely herself. Dante's eyes filled with tears. Marcus leaned toward him. Are you crying? No. You definitely are. Marcus. Just checking. When Isabella reached him, she looked at Dante. You okay? No. She smiled. Good answer. He took her hands. Their vows were simple. No promises of perfection. No fantasy that love could erase the past. They promised honesty, choice, respect. They promised to walk beside each other without ownership. And when Dante kissed his wife, the room erupted in applause. Years later, people still told stories about Dante Moretti. Some remembered the Mafia boss, the man who once controlled half the city's underground economy, the man whose enemies disappeared, the man who walked away from an empire. But Isabella knew stories were rarely as simple as legends made them. Dante had done terrible things. Leaving that world did not erase them. Loving Isabella did not absolve him. He carried responsibility for his choices. And that was precisely why his transformation mattered. Real change was not pretending the past never happened. It was refusing to let the past dictate every decision that came next. Isabella understood transformation too. She had entered the Moretti estate wearing a maid's uniform because life demanded that she survive. There was never shame in that. The uniform had not defined her intelligence, her dignity, her ambition, or her worth. Years later, when a journalist interviewed Isabella about her successful hospitality company, the woman hesitated before asking a question. Is it true you once worked as a maid? Isabella smiled. Yes. Do you ever wish people would forget that part of your story? No. The journalist looked surprised. Why? Because there's nothing to be ashamed of. Isabella leaned back. People sometimes talk about success as if you should erase every version of yourself that struggled. I don't believe that. The woman cleaning those rooms was the same woman sitting here today. She was intelligent then. She was ambitious then. She was worthy then. The journalist was silent. Isabella smiled. I didn't become valuable when I became successful. Other people just started noticing. That quote traveled around the world. Dante framed the magazine cover. Isabella discovered it hanging in his office. You framed this. Yes. Why? I'm proud of you. She leaned against the doorway. That's disgustingly sweet. Don't tell anyone. Your reputation might never recover. I'll risk it. Their life was not perfect. They argued. Often. Isabella hated Dante's habit of trying to solve every problem with money. Dante hated Isabella's habit of refusing help simply because she could do something alone. Once, they spent an entire evening arguing over whether they needed a plumber. We have water coming through the ceiling, Dante said. I can fix it. You are holding duct tape. Duct tape fixes things. Not plumbing. You don't know that. I know water is currently falling on my head. She looked up. A drop landed directly on his forehead. Isabella laughed so hard she had to sit down. Dante called the plumber. She never admitted he was right. Their disagreements did not frighten them, because they had learned that healthy love wasn't the absence of conflict. It was the absence of fear inside conflict. Neither threatened to leave simply to win. Neither used vulnerabilities as weapons. Neither confused control with care. And every time old instincts returned, they chose again. Years after their wedding, Dante woke one Sunday morning to sunlight pouring through the bedroom curtains. For several seconds, he didn't move. The house was quiet. No guards outside the door. No encrypted phone beside the bed. No emergency meeting waiting downstairs. Isabella slept beside him. Her curls covered half the pillow. From the hallway came the sound of small feet. Their daughter burst through the door. Daddy. Dante barely had time to sit up before a 4-year-old launched herself onto the bed. He caught her. Good morning, Sophia. Mommy said we're making pancakes. Isabella opened one eye. Mommy said Daddy is making pancakes. Dante looked betrayed. You know how that ends. Personal growth. Isabella smiled. Face your fears. Sophia grabbed his face with both hands. Pancakes. Dante sighed. Apparently I'm outnumbered. He carried his daughter downstairs. Isabella followed. Soon there was flour everywhere. One pancake burned. Another landed on the floor. Sophia declared the third one perfect, even though it looked like a broken continent. Dante stood in the middle of the kitchen and suddenly became very still. Isabella noticed. What? He looked around. At the sunlight. At the flour. At his daughter eating strawberries from the bowl when she thought nobody was watching. At his wife wearing one of his shirts. And he remembered a terrace many years ago. He remembered believing this kind of life belonged to other people. What? Isabella asked again. Dante smiled. Sunday morning. She understood immediately. All those years ago, he had told her he wanted Sunday mornings even though he didn't know what happened during them. Now he knew. Nothing extraordinary. That was the miracle. Coffee. Pancakes. Mess. Laughter. Family. Peace. Isabella walked toward him and wrapped her arms around his waist. Worth giving up an empire? Dante looked at his daughter, then at his wife. Every piece of it. She kissed him. Sophia made a dramatic, disgusted noise. Mommy. Isabella laughed. Dante lifted Sophia into his arms and kissed her cheek until she squealed. Outside, roses grew along the garden wall. Most were white. But near the kitchen window, Isabella had planted one black rose bush. Dante once asked her why. She told him black roses weren't truly black. Their petals were usually the deepest shades of crimson or purple, appearing black only from a distance. Dante had smiled at that, because perhaps people were like that too. From far away, darkness could look absolute. Get close enough and you discovered shades. History, pain, choices, possibility. Dante Moretti had once built his entire identity around darkness. Then Isabella Reed walked into his life and refused to mistake darkness for destiny. She did not rescue him. She challenged him. She did not surrender herself to love. She demanded that love make room for the person she already was. And Dante learned that the greatest proof of love wasn't possession. It was freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to grow. Freedom to walk away. And the courage, when love was worthy of it, to stay. So if you're listening tonight and wondering whether your beginning determines your ending, remember Isabella. A uniform could describe her job, but never her worth. Remember Dante. A terrible past could explain the man he had become, but it did not have to dictate the man he chose to become next. And remember this. Love alone cannot change someone who refuses to change. But sometimes love gives us a reason to look honestly at ourselves. After that, the choice is ours. Years later, Dante would occasionally tease Isabella about the first espresso she brought into his study. You knew it was cold, he told her. Obviously, you served it anyway. You were intimidating the entire staff. I thought you deserved bad coffee. Dante laughed. So our entire relationship began because you were punishing me, basically. And you married me. You improved. Marginally. She smiled. Marginally. Then Dante kissed her forehead. The former Maid who had never belonged to anyone. The former Mafia boss who had once believed everything could be owned. Two people from worlds that should never have touched. Not master and servant. Not savior and victim. Not king and queen of some criminal fantasy. Just Isabella and Dante. Two imperfect people who chose each other without surrendering themselves. And perhaps that was the part of their story worth remembering. Not that a powerful man fell in love with a maid, but that he learned her worth had never depended on his recognition. Not that Isabella found a rich man who transformed her life, but that she had already been transforming it long before he arrived. Their love did not give Isabella value. It recognized what was already there. Their love did not erase Dante's darkness. It forced him to decide what he would do with it. And in the end, the most powerful thing Dante Moretti ever did was not defeating an enemy. It was relinquishing the version of himself that needed enemies in order to feel powerful. The greatest victory Isabella Reed ever achieved was not marrying a wealthy man. It was building a life in which love became an addition to her identity, never a replacement for it. On their 10th anniversary, Dante brought Isabella back to the city where they had met. The Moretti estate belonged to another family now. They parked outside the gates. Isabella looked through the iron bars toward the distant house. Feels strange. Dante nodded. Do you miss it? No. Nothing, he thought. The kitchen. She laughed. You couldn't cook in that kitchen either. That isn't the point. What is? He looked at her. I met you there. Isabella slipped her hand into his. You met me in the dining room. Our first real conversation was in the study. Our first decent conversation was in the kitchen. Because you insulted me. Because I fed you. After insulting me. You survived. Barely. She rested her head against his shoulder. For a while, they simply stood there. The mansion represented everything Dante had once believed mattered. Power, status, fear, control. Now it was just a building behind a gate. His real life was waiting at home. Sophia had a school project due Monday. Marcus was bringing his family over for dinner. Isabella had an early meeting. Dante had promised to fix a cabinet door and had been reminded about it 6 times. Ordinary responsibilities. Ordinary frustrations. An ordinary future. Dante smiled. Once, ordinary had sounded like failure. Now it sounded like freedom. Ready? Isabella asked. He looked at the mansion one last time. Then at her. Yes. They walked back to the car. Neither looked behind them again. Because some stories aren't about escaping darkness and finding a perfect world. They're about learning that darkness does not deserve ownership of the future. They're about recognizing that strength can look like survival, boundaries, accountability, sacrifice, or the courage to begin again. They're about a woman who refused to lower her eyes, and a man who finally learned why that mattered. This was not the story of a maid who needed a powerful man to save her. Isabella Reed had been saving herself long before Dante Moretti learned her name. And it was not the story of a mafia boss magically redeemed by romance. Dante's choices remained his responsibility. His transformation required action, sacrifice, consequences, and years of becoming someone different. This was the story of 2 people who met at the wrong time, in the wrong world, under circumstances that should have made love impossible. Yet somewhere between cold espresso, midnight pasta, dangerous enemies, painful truths, and quiet Sunday mornings, they found something neither money nor fear could purchase. A choice. To see each other. To respect each other. To challenge each other. And, every day, to choose each other again. Because the strongest love is not the love that says, you belong to me. It is the love that says, you belong to yourself, and I am grateful you choose to walk beside me. And for Dante and Isabella, that was more valuable than any empire. This is Black Rose Stories, where sometimes the darkest rose carries the deepest color, and sometimes the most unforgettable love stories begin when one fearless woman looks directly at the man everyone else fears and reminds him that even a king of darkness still has a choice about the man he becomes.